Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. All directors are present. Moving on to the agenda. Ms. Sevi, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we'd like to remove items 13 and 14, which pertain to the closed session at the end of the meeting.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda with the changes?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to public comment. Ms. Sevi, are there any members of the public here or online?
Yes, there's 3 members of the public in person, and we have, looks like 2 online. Where would you like to start?
In person, please.
Okay. If you have a comment, just come up and use the microphone.
I just have a quick comment, not that important. I've just been coming to meetings for a few weeks now, and I request that maybe we keep this door unlocked for meeting times. I come in, just seems like this is the door the public comes in, and almost every meeting I come to, it's locked, and then someone has to come unlock it for me. So that's all, just a request to have the door be unlocked.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else in person have a public comment? All right. What about online?
Cheryl Roden?
No, thanks. I'm here for 6D.
And Kevin? Okay.
All right. So we'll move on to community reports. I don't think we have any community reports. All right. So we will move on to agenda item number 3. Does anyone have any items they would like to pull? No? Okay.
I'll move the item.
Second.
All right. All in favor of motion to approve the consent items, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. The motion passes. Number 4, there were no matters removed. Number 5, no presentation. So we move on to 6A, discussion and possible adoption of resolution number 2022-30, authorizing the opening of a brokerage account with Charles Schwab. Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, at the October Finance Committee and the November 2nd board meeting, staff talked about investment opportunities. Were discussed and potential financing avenues. The current interest rates offered are the highest they have been since the formation of the district. In researching available investment options, the investments available through Charles Schwab meet the district's investment policy and offer the highest interest rates available at this time. Staff recommends utilizing Charles Schwab for some of the district's investments. All investments are in accordance with the district's investment policy number 1130. Attached is the resolution 22-30, which must be adopted by the board in order to open an account.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
So this is just to open it, and then we still have to go through how much and all that good stuff, right?
Well, yeah, and we'll be financed. We do that in accordance with what we're allowed to do in the investment policy.
Okay.
So.
I just noticed that this is resolution 2020-21. Is this a year
Just
behind?
a point of clarity. So pages 43 and 44 are the resolution. And the header should have been added to the top 2022-30. It got deleted.
Okay, so the existing resolution has been updated?
The one that's in the statement of investment policy, that's an existing one.
No, there's a resolution 20-01.
The resolution by the board of the policy is 2 years ago.
And it
Has it been updated?
No, not since then. The investment policy is the same as from that time.
Oh, it's not something that we update every year?
No,
Okay.
this is necessary.
I just curious, I saw that. I don't have any other discussion on it.
No? All right. Well, if we have no discussion, do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of the motion for resolution 2022-30, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Moving on to 6B, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2022-31, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement and site lease and authorizing and directing certain actions in connection therewith for the financing of the Civic Center building. Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, at the last board meeting, staff brought forth financing options as the board had requested, and the board instructed staff to move forward with the lease agreement. And the first step in that process is the resolution to secure the district's interest rates and to move forward with the financing company to prepare the financial documents. Once those are prepared, this enables the staff to, or the district to enter into agreement, which will be reviewed by an attorney. And we usually use either Steve Kennedy, or sometimes he refers us to a financial attorney to review these types of things. So staff is recommending that the board approve Resolution 2022-31, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement and site lease, authorizing and directing certain actions in connection therewith for the financing of the Civic Center building, Phase 1 of the Civic Center project.
All right.
And our rate's already locked in, right?
Yeah, once we,
The
yes.
4.75 or
Yes.
whatever. Okay.
Could you just remind us again, for the public also, what the board agreed on consensus the last time was there were several options and we chose a specific option?
Yes, we were going to be able to save several $100,000 by using a lease option over the term of the lease or the term of the financing. We looked at iBank with a 30-year loan and then a 20-year loan, and then the lease turned out to be the better option for us. It was less costly for us in the long run.
And at the bottom of page 56 is the lease amounts, lease agreement amounts.
It's not to exceed the $6,500,000 is what that is.
Right.
So at the bottom of page 56 shows the total cost of the project is going to be $11,312,992 and change. And it's going to be sourced, or it's going to be funded with a lease and cash from enterprise and cash from government funds, and then a federal grant that we've applied for.
And that's shown in this table.
Yes. So we're financing approximately $6 million of the total, almost $12 million project. And that will basically, we talked about the investments that we're making. And those investments will cover the cost of the loan. So
They will pay for the interest that we accumulate on the loan, or pay for the loan?
the full loan payment, not just the interest.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So interest and
Yes.
balance reduction. Great.
Yeah.
Back
so-
to back.
Yeah. So
Items.
it'll be a good, it's going to be a nice revenue source for us. It's nice that we're going to be able to do that.
Yes, it's nice to get better than 0.001%
Yes.
on money.
Yes.
Good time to invest.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
No, those were answers.
Okay. All right. So do I have a motion?
I'll move.
the item.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor of resolution 2022-31, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? the motion passes. Thank you.
Madam President, I do think there was a public speaker that wanted to speak on 6B.
Oh,
I believe
6D.
Cheryl said 6D,
Oh, okay.
but thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
No, no problem.
I heard 6D also.
the same here.
All right, so we'll move on to 6C, introduction of ordinance 2022-03, establishing regulations for custody and use of the district seal, district logo, and district insignia. Ms. Sevi.
All right, thank you. So on page, 69 of the packet, you'll see the exhibits. So Exhibit A is what we're calling our seal, and Exhibit B1 and B2 are the iterations that we use for our logo. And then the district also has quite a bit of insignia that we use for different departments, such as conservation and solid waste. And so just to kind of clarify what those items are. So as you're aware, the district does not have a policy for the use of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and read through the background. Just note that this is just the introduction, so there's a few little typos and spacing things throughout here. So before it comes back for its first reading, all that will be cleaned up. So the district seal, logo, and insignia are the personal property of the district, and the district can control their use as well as prevent other parties from unauthorized use. Misuse or unauthorized use of the district seal, district logo, or other district insignia can cause confusion or misrepresentation that a statement, event, or organization is supported or endorsed by the district. Although a person may be criminally prosecuted for the improper use of the district's official seal if it is used in the context of campaign literature or mass mailings, there are no other statutory prohibitions on the use of the district's official seal or logo. Therefore, staff is recommending adoption of regulations governing the use of these items. So at this time, we're recommending that we adopt the ordinance that's attached. It does establish some civil fines. It's $500 for misuse. And then we will have to go through the ordinance procedure for this. So it would be first reading, second reading, followed by a public hearing, and then possible adoption. So are there any questions about the policy?
Just, Mr. Kennedy, I assume you put this together?
No, actually, Ms. Sevi put it together.
Okay.
It's a pretty remarkable document for staff to have put together. And as usual, she does really remarkable work in connection with these. So this was completely put together by staff.
And you have reviewed it?
I have reviewed it, yes.
And the penalties, Section 5 penalties, there's no problems with that, no issues?
That's within the limits that are allowable under the law.
Okay, so,
And the ability of the board to impose those penalties is conditioned upon the adoption of an ordinance. So that's why you go through the rigmarole with the first reading, the second reading, the publication, and all that is by virtue of going through that process, and that creates the ability for the board to enforce it in ways that you would not normally be able to enforce a resolution or some other minute action of the board.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I'm happy we're doing this.
No?
I have a question.
Yes.
So yeah, my question relates to Section 5 as well. So I'm just curious, one, how does the district enforce a $500 civil fine?
Mr. Kennedy?
Sure. The district would issue a notice of violation, similar to the manner in which it can issue notice of violation with respect to other ordinances that the board has adopted. And if that notice is not, that violation is not paid, then could proceed through either civil remedies, filing a lawsuit and collecting it that way, or initiating criminal prosecution in its own name, or violating its own ordinance, which would obviously require some level of due process associated with this. I doubt that, as with the other ordinances, there's never been, in the history of the district, an effort to criminally prosecute someone who has violated district ordinance, but if that were the case, then that would be done in the same way that counties and cities prosecute land use violations and code enforcement issues, and that is through the criminal court system.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it just seems to me that someone could walk away and just be like, I'm not going to pay. And then the district from there has a pretty big jump from a $500 fine to either a lawsuit or imprisonment for a term up to 6 months. I mean, that just seems like a pretty big jump. So I was just curious how enforcement would happen. Thank you.
Well, usually there's some negotiating and some discussions prior to any,
Imprisonment?
well, fines and stuff. Usually, we try to solve it.
For sure, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically
No.
there would be a written warning or two before there would be, you would go straight to a notice of violation and collection of fines or penalties.
Okay. All right. So at this point, we don't vote on this one, right? It's just an introduction.
Yep, just an introduction,
All right.
and if the policy is acceptable, we can begin the process to adopt the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that much of experience in, this would be considered like a patent law case, wouldn't it?
Copyright.
Could I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm not in disagreement with this. I'm just thinking through the reason that the district is doing this is because some folks, or at least one person who was running for election, used the logo on their material, running for election to the board, right? Used the election for their promotional material. So it just seems to me that $500 some people might look at that as just the cost of getting elected, right? Like you just put it on, you do it long enough, you get on the board, maybe $500 is worth it. I'm wondering if $500
Well, actually,
is a
there's
big
a
enough
whole
fine.
paragraph on that the state has regulations for elections. So the elections part of it is actually covered,
Okay,
but not beyond elections.
okay,
And so this is really for elections also, but for any other type of
Right.
misuse.
okay.
But the state actually has, it's in here,
Okay, I didn't
election
see that.
code 18304, whatever it is. So there is already legal stuff. So this is just basically
Covering
for the district to
non-electoral stuff.
cover other uses, basically. And I guess it would also be involved with elections, is that correct, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, it would apply with elections. It would apply to any misuse of district logos or insignias, or the district seal. And I might point out that the remedies are not exclusive. So this is just one more arrow in the quiver where the board would be able to impose fines or penalties. It does not exclude other remedies, such as injunctive relief, that the district could pursue to prevent actual use of the logo. If there were any actual civil damages as a result of the use of the logo, that could also be pursued. So this is just the process for imposing fines or penalties. But if there are any other damages related to it, or if there is a need to seek immediate injunctive relief, those remedies are still available. So it's not the exclusion of any other remedy.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and additionally, this isn't just limiting the use of the district seal or logo, for unauthorized users in the public. It's also staff as well. So it specifies that the general manager is or designee is custodian of these items and that they will approve all of the documents that it goes on.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that's actually the more common issue is staff or consultants or board members utilizing their utilizing these logos that are paid for with public funds for their own personal use, whether it's stationery or internal election materials or using that information for an improper purpose. So I think more often you would see something that would be happening internally rather than a candidate for the board using this information externally.
And in addition to the penalties, if there was an individual, let's say, putting our logo on their signs, we do have a section that allows abatement, which I believe would run through code enforcement. So we would notify them of the violation and then the signs could be removed.
Good addition.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
She always
Very well
does a
written.
good job. All right, so we will move on to 6D, update on uniform solid waste collection and possible authorization to amend uniform collection ordinance. Ms. Sevi.
All right, my turn again. Mr. Fish, would you mind running the presentation? Thank you. All right, first slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of history here. It's familiar to all of you on the board. In 2011, the district took over solid waste powers from the County of San Bernardino, assuming responsibility for meeting the state of California's existing and future solid waste requirements. The district at that time adopted the existing franchise agreement between CR&R and the county, and we operated under that until, when was it? 2021. Actually, no. I lost my note on that. We operated under that, I think, until 2019 when we adopted our own franchise agreement, and then we did an amendment earlier this year in order to comply with SB 1383. In 2016, the district began reporting diversion to the county because a lot of the commercial recycling regulations went into effect, and the county was our jurisdiction for reporting our compliance to at the time. And so we had to report on what we call diversion, and diversion, just as a reminder, is anything that's not sent to the landfill. So recyclable plastic, glass, cardboard, printer cartridges, tires, all of that. And then we would have to gather information, and we still do, from our district businesses on what they divert. And so we handle that right now through our permitting process. So we gather the receipts, or our hauler collects that information at the time of collection. And then in December of 2017, the district adopted ordinance number 2017-02 and 03, which dealt with our commercial solid waste and recycling program. And then, as you're aware, this year we adopted our SB 1383 ordinance. And so that was ordinance 2022-02. Next slide. So I'm going to go through all of the district's requirements for the disposal of solid waste. And so when we refer to solid waste, we are talking about the trash, recycling, and organic material. So California Integrated Waste Management Board, which is commonly called by the name CalRecycle, they set the requirements for local jurisdictions. And all community services districts with solid waste powers are subject to Public Resources Code, and there's a whole bunch of them, which means we're required to comply with the state management and diversion laws, so recycling laws. And we must also meet all of our state and local county requirements for the disposal of solid waste. So in addition to what the state does, the county could set forth additional requirements, which right now they are for reporting. All right, so let's start with the trash component of solid waste. So our compliance requirements are predicated by California Housing Code. It requires that an adequate number of trash cans with securely closing lids are kept in good condition. And then also a Public Resources Code, which requires the removal of trash every 7 days. So that's for health and safety purposes. And we get a happy face here because we're compliant with that right now, because you can self-haul using your dump pass, which gives you 52 punches a year, so that meets that weekly requirement. Or you can sign up for weekly service with CR&R. Next one. Okay, so here are our recycling and organics requirements for non-SB 1383 related requirements. So the first one is AB 939. That was adopted a long, long time ago in 1989 and requires a 50% diversion, so recycling. That was later changed to more of like a per capita amount, because even today, the state as a whole is about 42% for recycling diversion. And our enforcement agency is CalRecycle. Are we compliant? We get a sad face here because, as you're aware, our overall diversion rate is pretty low. We're about 10% for commercial now and less than 3% for residential. So in this year, we adopted 2022-01, which basically just expanded upon our existing ordinances for commercial recycling, diversion, all of that. And we have not implemented the organics component of that just yet. The other one we have is AB 341. This requires commercial recycling and source separation. We get kind of like an almost happy face here because we just got our program completely running fully this year. So July 1, every single business has a recycling container, or they have a permit to self-haul if they don't want the container. It only gets the kind of happy face because the diversion rate is 10.38% as of the last reporting month. And then AB 1826, so before SB 1383 was adopted, there were organics requirements in place for businesses. And so this requires the source separation and diversion of commercial organic waste. And again, we haven't done anything for establishing that program yet, other than letting our businesses that do have organic waste know that it's coming. Next slide. Okay, so that is everything that's not SB 1383 related. So now let's move on to the requirements of SB 1383. And 1 second. Okay, so let's talk about the collection and procurement portion of SB 1383. So it does require residential collection of organic material. So residents are required to subscribe to and participate in their jurisdiction's organic curbside collection service. They're required to properly sort their organic waste into the correct containers, and we can allow self-hauling of organic waste, which we have to set the criteria for. So originally, as you're aware, we were under a time crunch to get an enforcement mechanism adopted. That was our ordinance 2022-01, and that made us eligible for an SB 1383 implementation grant. And so we adopted our ordinance. It wasn't perfect, and so we've been kind of working through what needs to be amended. And so at this time, I'm recommending that we revise the ordinance to allow for self-hauling of all waste, including organics, as long as certain requirements are met. and also allow for de minimis waivers for residential in addition to commercial. And so this is new. This just recently happened because CalRecycle is now amenable to allowing self-hauling of organics, not just composting of organics. And I've been speaking with the county, working with their Department of Public Works, which oversees their solid waste programs, and they are undergoing kind of the same change that we are for their county service areas. So Oak Hills, similar to us, the county is going to have to implement similar requirements. And so they are aware that they're going to have to change the processes at the transfer station, so what we call the dump. And so as a result of that, we have discovered that we can continue to allow our residents to go there and they will do the record keeping. So that's the big component, but they have asked that we piggyback off their education that they do to self-haulers, that they need to, separate everything before they get to the dump so they don't tie up the line, and that you know, the county isn't just going to allow you to just show up with your pass and use it. You're going to have to apply for a permit. So either you subscribe to service with CR&R, or you contact us and get a permit, and they're recommending 26 disposal receipts per year as proof that they're actually going and getting rid of the material in the appropriate manner. So basically, we're kind of recommending modeling our program after what the county is going to do for their service area. So the dump card will stay, so you can still use that to dispose of your waste. And the only changes is you'll have to get a permit from us, and you'll have to provide the proof that you're actually going to the dump and disposing of your household waste. And the same thing for commercial. You can dispose of your organics at the dump now instead of.
Well, the issue of this is organics, correct?
So
Because
this is what I
all
need.
of your all of your weeds and all of the, all that stuff needs to be separated prior to going to the dump.
Correct, and the recyclables. So as a district, we have two issues, so I want to keep that in mind. We don't just have an SB 1383 compliance problem, we have our AB 939 compliance problem, which is our recycling. And so we just needed to make sure that the county is going to do the source separating and the tracking for us on those two components, because that's what we're responsible for tracking and recording and reporting on. And so it's looking like they're going to be able to do that for us, because they're going to have to do it for their areas.
So in other words, if you drive up and you have a barrel of tree cuttings, and you have a barrel of house waste, and then some recyclables, cardboard and glasses, whatever, how are they going to weigh are they going to weigh that 3 times?
I don't know how they're going to do it.
you
That's
don't
up
know?
to the county to figure out with
Okay.
the operator, which is currently Athens, on the logistical component of that. And so that's what they're working on right now.
Because that's really the key, is
that
that
is
you
the
want to
key.
be able to weigh the different things so that you
Yes.
have records of how much green waste, how much organics you're not putting in the landfill.
That's correct. And in the event the county can't make this happen for us, which it's looking like they're going to be able to do, and CalRecycle said that they would assist us with any persuasion that needs to happen at the county level for this option. But if that doesn't happen, CR&R has agreed to help develop a program at their yard or a different location in the district to where the same drop-off program could happen. It'll look a little different. I don't want to get into the weeds on it because the disposal costs, all sorts of things change at that point, but there is going to be a viable, complete self-haul option for residents. So that is good news. Yeah, and if we can continue to use the transfer station, because they're going to do all of the tracking that we need and ensure the source separation is happening and do the contamination monitoring, you know, of all the loads, then that's great, and we can keep the dump cards. And then for those who choose to have CR&R, there's a tipping fee offset because they're paying $88 roughly on your tax bill. So that should be offset in your rate somewhere since you're not going to the dump. CR&R is going to the dump for you.
So one last question.
Yes.
Is there any current time frame for the structure that you've been describing?
July 1, 2022 is the county's timeline, and that's what we're gonna,
July 1, 2022?
2023, sorry, next year. Yes, in the past.
I was going way.
Yes.
Okay,
No,
so
2023.
next year, July 1, the start of the fiscal year, they're going to try to implement this.
Yeah, and they're going through kind of the same, rate discussions with CR&R and their other haulers right now about all of this too, so kind of in the same boat. All right, so back to this, the commercial collection of organic material. Again, we adopted our ordinance, so that was our initial compliance method, and then just recommend revising the ordinance for commercial to allow the self-hauling of waste and allow for de minimis waivers as long as certain requirements are met. Because there are a few businesses, actually there are several businesses that really have no organic waste at all. And so it wouldn't make sense for them to have an organic waste bin. And then, the best news we received this year was the procurement, the use of recycled organic products, compost, mulch, and renewable energy. Initially, we were going to have to buy so much mulch, basically cover the district in mulch in order to meet that procurement requirement, but we're exempt. So that's good news. And the mulch that we do currently give out would only represent about 7% of the procurement that we need. So we were looking at quite a bit of expense there and meeting that, because we don't really have renewable energy we can purchase right now. What we weren't exempt from, though, was the use of recycled organic products, paper products, and we did pass our resolution 2022-26 in July, so we get a green happy face for that one. And we are procuring organic, or not organic, we are procuring paper products right now. And we are tracking it because there's quite the spreadsheet on tracking your paper product purchases. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we just talked about our collection and procurement, and now another component of SB 1383 is edible food recovery. So this one, it's going to take some time, but food recovery means collecting edible food that would otherwise go to waste and redistribute it to feed people in need. So this is considered by the state the highest and best use for food that would otherwise go to waste. After people, it can go to animals. So we had to identify our tier 1 donors and our tier 2 donors. And so we've done that with CR&R. And then right now we're working to see if there's a way to work with the county. They indicated at the last Solid Waste Advisory Task Force meeting that they would, for free for now, help any jurisdiction with identifying tier 1 and tier 2 and potentially some of the data collection that we need to do, because environmental health is already going into all of these businesses and dealing with the permit process, which has a huge checklist for things. So it would be adding a few items to it, and then they would give that data back to us, so we don't actually have to go into some of these premises and do that type of inspection. So they would do it for us. So I highly recommend we enter into that MOU when it becomes available, because it's free. So we get a green happy face on that. And then the other one is we need to provide education and outreach to tier 1 and tier 2. We did do initial outreach with CR&R staff. It's been a minute because we've been waiting to figure out what exactly can go in the green bin. So our initial outreach was, this is coming, these are some of the major types of things that are gonna have to go into the green bin at your business. And then now that we're getting a better idea of where our waste is gonna go, we can fine tune the list of what can go in the green bin, and now we can do much better outreach and start developing marketing materials and stickers and flyers and get those out to our businesses. Then the next component of edible food recovery is assessing our community capacity. So if more food is available than recovery organizations can accept, the district must actively expand and create new infrastructure to grow food recovery networks. So basically, right now, we're trying to figure out how much food is going into the trash that could be recoverable. And if so, is it too much for our 3 current organizations that take the food? And so if it's too much for them, then we would need to actively try to create more organizations or expand the capacity of the organizations to take more of that food and distribute it out. So that's going to take some time to do just because we're not collecting any of this stuff right now, and the biggest food producer, edible food producer that we have is the grocery store, and they have their own in-house program. And so, we're not the only jurisdiction that is reaching out to Stater Brothers, trying to figure out the quantity and what they're doing with it. Because I do know they already have a robust recovery program in place. It's just, we need the data now. So that way we can put it into the program
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
I'm sure they don't leave anything to waste, so
Well, they compost already.
they do something with it.
Yeah, but we have to identify of what's being composted. Was there edible food in there, and could it have been recovered? So that's going to take some doing. And then we just kind of talked about this already, inspecting for maximum recovery. So food donors must offer donation of the maximum amount of edible food they would otherwise dispose of. And then there's a record keeping component to this. So the generator, so like Stater Brothers or Dollar General, they sell a few food items, the 99-cent store. They need to keep records of the types and quantity of food recovered. So whenever they give something away, they need to track it. So it's not just put it in a box and give it away. It's like we need to mark down how much and what types and all of that. And then we have to facilitate contracts between these organizations and the generators. So we have to help our food recovery organizations develop a contract and a reporting mechanism between the generator. So we have quite a bit to do there. Thankfully, we're very small. So, we have about 3 tier 1 generators, so 3 to 4. And then we get a green happy face because we did post our contact information of our known food recovery organizations on our website. And that'll be updated if we find any more. So just waiting to see if there are more, and as they are, we'll update it. I imagine there's going to be more organizations popping up as people are implementing this program. Okay, next slide. Okay, so our SB 1383 education. So there are some education components that are part of SB 1383, and that includes annually educating all organic waste generators, commercial edible food generators, and self-haulers about relevant requirements. So that can be done in our billing inserts, separate mailers, emails, our e-newsletter, just a variety of ways. And then we can supplement with direct communication. And so we have met, again, with our commercial side of things about what's coming. And then, like I said, now that we have a better idea of what our program's going to look like, we're going to start in January with our public education campaign to our residents, in addition to our commercial organizations. So you'll see a mailer, kind of looks like the way we dispose of trash is about to change, going out as just a separate mailer to all improved parcels in the district, inviting them to a public information meeting, which is January 26th at 10 a.m. All of that's going to be on our website, which I'm working on updating, making it more robust.
Perhaps Mr. Kennedy can do something similar to the ethics class that we all have to take.
So our Our public information meeting is going to be facilitated by a consultant who's an expert in SB 1383, and a couple of our CalRecycle representatives will be in attendance, and I believe the county will also be there as well.
Yep.
And then next slide, our route reviews, waste evaluation and enforcement. So I don't want to read all of this, but there's a bunch of things that we need to check off when we do what we call lid flips. And there's a certain number we're going to have to do each year. It's based off participation. It's just ensuring that our residents and businesses are source separating and that the wrong items don't go in the wrong bin. And if, you know, we've reached out many, many times and it's still not going well, we would activate that enforcement portion of our ordinance and start with the notice of violations. And all of this has its own spreadsheet about tracking our outreach to offenders and whether or not they've received a notice of violation and all of this. So that's quite a bit. And we are, it's sad face because we haven't done anything with that yet. And then we have the record keeping, and it's very burdensome. And so we're looking at electronic solutions to this. There's all sorts of slick apps you can get for your phone or for the computer, which will help us track everything that we need to track in order to put it into the template that CalRecycle provides us each year. And so basically, at any time, CalRecycle could come and say, give us your records. And we need to be able to know exactly where they are and have them ready to go. And so a copy of all ordinances or enforceable mechanisms, contracts, and agreements, which we have that. A written description of the inspection and enforcement program, which we're working on. All organic waste collection service records, which we will have, just like we get right now from CalRecycle for recycling and trash. All waiver and exemption records, contamination minimization records, all education and outreach records. So, I mean, that spreadsheet is like title of the mailer, who it went to, how many households, when it went out, how it went out, all of these things. The recovered organic waste procurement target records, which again, we don't have that, thankfully. All recycling content paper procurement records. So, anytime our person who purchases anything that's related to that, it needs to be logged. So how much, when, how much we spent. And it needs to be up to date at all times because we never know when CalRecycle will come in. And then all inspection, route review, compliance review documents, all records of enforcement actions, and all records of complaints, investigations, compliance, everything. And then all records required by jurisdictions implementing a performance-based source-separated organic waste collection service. So it's a lot of record keeping. I don't know if I can load it, but I do have this big spreadsheet if you're ever interested in. I can send it to you. Okay, and this last component, the SB 1383. So next slide, Mr. Fish, evaluate the current infrastructure. Our plan for new compost facilities, AD, edible food recovery. Our hauler's confident that they're able to take all of our waste at this time and that we have an outlet for it. Because there was concern that initially, because Circle Green isn't taking it right now because they're not completely done with their permitting process, that perhaps, you know, the other facilities that are in the high desert won't take it. But they are for now. We have to work on agreements for that. And in the event that they can't, it can go down to a CR in our yard, you know, down the hill. So Colton has a MRF down there and they could take the organics. So we're good. We can take it, and we have new facilities on the horizon with Circle Green. And then the edible food recovery, again, it's just determining how much food could be recovered and if our current recovery organizations have the capacity to take it. So, Mr. Fish, did the slideshow break? It died. One moment. Okay, I can do this. About when did it die? Did you see this one? Okay, so this is all on the website too. Okay, so our compliance plan, this is just updated periodically. So what's changed since the last time this came before the board is we're reviewing our uniform collection ordinance and amending as necessary. And then all of our uniform collection would begin in July 1, 2023. So that's commercial and residential, because we're just not ready to implement commercial on January 1 like we thought we were, because we're still developing the rates. And we have to go through a 218 process when we adopt those rates, so, or before we adopt those rates. Okay, so are there any questions about this? It's a lot. SB 1383 on its own is quite cumbersome, but just keep in mind that it's not just SB 1383 that our ordinance is dealing with, it's also our recycling requirements as a jurisdiction. And the county is under a compliance order for their business recycling numbers. And again, if they're not compliant, because we're still reporting to them, they come after us. And so now they're asking for monthly data from us.
Okay. All right, let's start with the board. Any questions?
Kathy?
No? Deborah?
Right now,
Okay, then I'll ask mine.
chewing on it a bit still.
Are you working on, I know there's a lot of things that you're working on as far as logistics of all the record keeping and stuff, but are you looking at what personnel we currently have and whether there may be need for an additional staff?
Yeah, so we did just hire a staff member for that, and that's going to help with going out with CR&R staff, doing the lid flips and meeting individually with our residents and with our businesses that are having compliance issues. And so that's mainly what we need. And for now, CR&R handles the lion's share of like the collection and all of that. And then it's kind of, I feel like with the staff we have right now, we're going to be able to handle the billing component, and we're going to be able to handle the
record
permit.
keeping?
Yeah, the record keeping. Again, there's lots of really great app-based solutions, and I've been talking with George about developing a similar protocol for solid waste as what our water guys have. So when they go out in the field, they have an iPad and they're able to record and access all sorts of data, which can then get put into a report. And so I'm confident we're going to be very efficient in what we do and, you know, not have to increase our staff. Talk to me in a year
Well, I
after
know
we
I
go
was
through
asking whether you're doing,
Yeah.
looking as this builds up, you're going to have, because you're going to, there's classes you're going to have and recording everything that you do.
There's
So
lots of things, yeah. And so basically, anytime we talk to a customer, and this is similar to water, we're commenting on that conversation, so we can talk about all the contacts we've had. And yes, it's a lot, but I think that we're going to be able to do it, and we're going to utilize technology to make it happen. These aren't going to be paper records.
And second, can you just quickly, again, summarize the changes in the collection ordinance as far as for the self-hauling, just quickly so that everybody,
Yes, the main important changes are allowing for self-hauling of all materials. So your trash, recycling, and organics. And then expanding de minimis from commercial to residential. And then we'll develop our internal processes on, you know, it'll be at the discretion of the general manager ultimately on who qualifies as de minimis. And then we're going to model our permit process and our tracking after the counties. So whatever fee structure they set for their permit, we're going to recommend to the board to adopt. And same thing with the receipt gathering.
so if you self-haul, there is a fee
Yes,
that is not related to the punch cards that we currently have,
that is correct, because it has to pay for the staff time for doing the
but it's different than
data
picking
gathering.
up.
It is.
And are there, you're going to have separate trash cans for current pickup.
Yeah, so,
But are the self-haulers also going to have those various trash cans?
no, the self-haulers will provide their own containers and they'll
And,
do
and
the source
separate it
separating.
themselves?
Yeah, and we'll just have to,
Okay.
we'll have to do,
But there's going to be something at the dump, and we don't know what that is, but there's going to be something. And so, as far as I know, when you say de minimis, that would cover that, it seems to me.
de minimis? Yeah, that could cover de minimis, but you have some,
Because they'd
you
be
have some properties
self-haulers.
that are developed out here that aren't owner occupied. So they wouldn't be able to produce 26 receipts a year, and they wouldn't need to pay for a permit because there's nothing to track. So de minimis is going to look different than it did before, because de minimis is really going to be, you have no need for any level of service. Because if you're going to the dump with your small amounts, you're meeting the requirements of disposal and you don't need a waiver.
That's why I'm saying this,
Yeah.
with the self-hauling, that would be what the previous discussions on the de minimis, people with just a little bit, they can just take it to the dump. So, but there will be a fee
Yeah,
there. But the de minimis is going to be related to properties where there is no
right.
trash.
There's nobody there, or they come
Yeah.
up like once a
They're
year.
vacant or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be a need for them to have curbside or a permit and all of this, so. And we track all of that already, we do it with our businesses, and when they go out of business, you'll see our numbers fluctuate on the number of customers. So at one point, I think we had 145 commercial customers, and we're at 122, 123 now?
Very good. He touched base on my question about the permit and whether there was going to be a fee or not. My other question was, you're saying that we may have to do random inspections of people's containers to make sure that they are source separating.
Yes.
Are they going to do that for the ones that have a permit and self-haul to make sure that they are doing it?
That should happen at the transfer station, and so that was part of the discussion to ensure that we're meeting the source separation component of SB 1383. And so my understanding is that the county's working with Athens on developing that program to ensure that the material that people are bringing is source separated and put into the correct pile, and that it's ultimately disposed of properly, and that we get the credit for it.
Okay, and so in that case, if they did find someone that was not source separating, could they repeal their permit and make them get?
They could do whatever they want. So if the county decides getting rid of the permit is the way to go, or a fine, the scales, because like you get fined if your load's uncovered. So I imagine they might implement something similar, I don't know. So they're in the process of developing it. So I don't know 100% of what this looks like. It's just a huge component was kind of more solidified, is that we can allow people to continue disposing of their waste as they have been, a little bit more paperwork, a little bit more money. The county did say for now the dump card fee is going to stay as it is, but that doesn't mean it won't change, because as you're aware, it's probably double really what the people dispose of out here in terms of tipping fees. So the dump card fees don't cover actual tipping fees for our residents.
Okay.
So that's, for now, it looks like dump card will have the same rate. There is a fly that is really after me. Apologize.
All right, with that, we will go to in-person public. Does anyone have any questions on this item? No? All right, online, Ms. Roden?
I'm unmuting here.
Okay, we can hear you.
Great. First, congratulations, great job. I think a lot of people will be relieved that self-haul will be preserved, as well as de minimis, those who have so little. As far as inspections, my neighbor's dog inspects my trash regularly. So I'll ask them to take notes, because my neighbor goes out and picks it up. And will there be ice cream at the meeting?
There will not be ice cream, as it is January, maybe some hot cocoa left over from the tree lighting ceremony.
Yeah. Is it still your intention to do away with residential dumpsters?
We never intended to get away from residential dumpsters. That's just a higher level of service that you can continue to pay for.
Okay. And manure, that's going to have to go to people handling it themselves instead of putting it in a dumpster?
Yeah, so you were at our committee meeting and, there's not a prohibition on manure yet. The problem is, it's very heavy and it contaminates everything. So like right now, you have a mixed dumpster. So like if you put it in there, it's potential that it contaminates it so bad they can't recover any of the recyclables from it if they were trying to recover it. The main thing is convincing people that manure, while it does come from an animal, is not really organics. And so we're going to have to do some education to keep that out of the green bin, because there's really strict standards on what's considered compostable. And so manure is typically composted separately from green waste. And then green waste, they can compost it down and it can go to ag and things like that. And so they don't mix it. People like to know that if their compost has animal products or doesn't have animal products. And so, it's a problem out here. We do have a lot of people with horses and, put it in the trash if you're going to put it anywhere when you have your 3 bins, not in the green bin, because, and that's part of the education we're going to have to do. We're fine tuning what can go in the green bin. It's not going to be manure. I know that. And that'll be educating our customers on that. And then if they are doing it, sending them the notice of violation. Oh my gosh, the fly.
Yeah. What if, and this is just for someone else, not myself, what if someone just put manure in the dumpster?
So, yeah, so as Brandon from CR&R talked about at our solid waste committee meeting, like it breaks the trucks. It makes it too heavy. You can't dump it. And
Yeah,
so,
if I could just comment on that, maybe a future discussion in the committee meeting on this issue. I'm gonna bet that somebody had rocks in their manure, and that was why there was a problem. Because I had 10 horses at one time and filled a dumpster every week and didn't have rocks in it, and they had no problem picking it up. So that's something to discuss maybe further and see what's possible.
yeah, and rocks aren't allowed in the dumpster.
Yeah.
Or dirt.
Just great. Really, Kim, you've done some great outreach work here, and I really appreciate it that you're really working to address the self-haul issues for a lot of folks. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone's patience. I told you it would happen. It's just, it's government, it's slow, and we're reliant on a lot of other agencies, and, getting everybody on the same page and getting everybody in agreement on how we're going to do this. I think Debbie McAfee has her hand raised.
Okay. Ms. McAfee, did you have a comment or question?
You're muted, Debbie.
I just wanted to say thank you so much to Kim for listening to all of our concerns. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're
Kudos
welcome.
to Kim, always, always. Mr. Burns?
I had a question that I forgot and never.
I do want to say I agree. Thank you very much for your hard work on this. It's much appreciated. Is there any discussion yet on how self-haulers will deal when they compost their own stuff? Like I compost everything organic at my house.
Yeah, so, if you're going to self-haul your waste to the transfer station, you're going to get a receipt that says that you went there. And if I pull it and it says you don't ever turn in organics, I'm going to call you and be like, hey, Peter,
Okay.
I don't show that you have any organics disposed of. What's going on? You're going to say I compost. I'll be like, thank you. And then if I don't believe you, I can go check.
Okay. So it's going to be a separate thing with CSD versus the dump, dealing with that.
Yeah. So they're just going to give you the receipt that you went, hopefully with the different amounts that were disposed of. And then if we see that he or anybody else are not actually taking organics or recycling, we're just going to have to give a call. So that's all part of the follow-up.
Okay. All right, awesome work. Thank you so much. See, we knew we would get there.
Yes, just takes time.
Thank you so much. You did so much work on it. It's been
Yeah, I
wonderful.
dream about this, so.
There was a lot to sort out. There really was.
Yeah, the fly's like, oh, trash? We're talking trash? Let's go talk to the trash lady. I caught it in my hand, and I thought I squished it, but I didn't, and I let it go, it left.
That's a new one for us. All right, so we will move on to 6E, update on the proposed Civic Center and Phelan Park expansion. Mr. Cardins.
Yes, I can do that. It's my pleasure. This update is going to be a little thorough, just because we're approaching the holidays, and it's going to be pretty quiet at the county, probably for the next month and a half. But a lot has been accomplished, probably since our last report, and that is pretty much the approvals of some of the reports and studies. But let me focus on the Civic Center. As what was mentioned last, I think it's been a month or month and a half, is that county planning has circulated the site plan and the studies with the state clearinghouse. And we were waiting for comments by the end of October. No comments were received, so that's a good sign that there's no any discussions on any changes to that. The construction drawings for phase one, the Civic Center, and that's the building itself. It's in for its fourth plan check. It's towards the tail end. They always come back with, you misspelled something. Unfortunately, we have to go through this process with new staff when they go through another set of eyes for a review. The street plan as well has gone through its fourth plan check. Same thing. Another set of eyes catch something else. The WQMP is in plan check, and it was resubmitted at the end of September. The preliminary drainage study was approved with red lines. This was back in January, so it's been a while. The grading plan, it's in county review since August. And this has been, it's really tied in with the grading plan on the 14-acre. And I'll kind of discuss that when I get into the 14-acre update. The landscape plan has been submitted, well, I'll tell you when it was submitted. It was submitted last year. They don't touch it until they have everything else pretty much approved. So we're kind of pushing on to getting that moved forward and plan check, so we get any comments, we don't have any further delay with that. But they're probably the most efficient department, even though they have not reviewed our plan in the last year. The Edison service upgrade has been finalized with the Edison engineer. Now we're working with the designer just to kind of mobilize how we're going to distribute the transformer to the Civic Center, to the park. There's some planning with that. The incidental take permit on the Joshua trees that was prepared by RCA, it has been submitted. We're waiting for a receipt or an invoice and then a receipt so they can continue with their plan check. I think that plan check is somewhere around $34,000. That's going to take about, and when I talk about this as ITP, this is for the 14-acre, where we're addressing it now with the Civic Center project. That there may take 6 to 8 months for them to review. Really, that's more part into the park project. And I'll touch on that a little bit in the 14-acre project. I got the fly on my side, Kim. The park site, we'll talk about that. The formal application was submitted with all the studies in hand with county planning, and they're waiting for fees and deposits to be issued. And this is the initiation that is processed for an approved COP. So they got to approve a site plan, preliminary site plan, so then we can move forward with the final project. The traffic has been approved for this. This is kind of tied in with the Civic Center project, but the traffic study has been approved for the 14-acre. The percolation as well has been approved for the 14-acre, which is also tied with the Civic Center. The geotechnical report has been conditionally approved. That means that there's just some minor adjustments that can be handled during construction. The biological assessment has also been completed for the 14-acre. And as mentioned, the application for the ITP has been submitted. The cultural report has been completed as well with the infiltration report. Pending is the hydrology study for the 14 acre. We do have a copy of the 5 acre project, but we're waiting for the completion of the 14 acre site. And the preliminary grading plan and street plans. They need a draft for the CEQA. We're talking about the 14 acre. So then they can initiate that and move forward with that. With the complexity of these two projects, it seems that the county has been running into a roadblock. And that is on approving the approved action on the Civic Center. In the last month, Supervisor Cook's representative, Samuel Shoup, I believe is the name, he's been in email circulations with Steno, the CSD, and the county. And it's really to help initiate a meeting with the director of San Bernardino County Land Use to review the two site plans and the permits that we have in land use, land development, and building and safety. The struggle with the county is finding a creative way to issue some sort or some type of temporary grading permit for phase 1. And that's pretty much the roadblock. There's a lot of conditions that come in play for that. We're taking a lot of dirt from that 14 acre, moving over to the 5 acre site. With that being said, we're scheduling a meeting sometime early next week with the director and kind of discuss the next actions, because we're kind of towards the end of all the plan checks. It's just waiting for this it's that fly. Waiting for approvals on some of these plans, but really the big key is the grading plan. With that being said, I don't have anything more to report. If there's any questions that you may have, please ask. I'm sure I'll find an answer. And like Kim says, she dreams of her solid waste. I dream of this. Not in a good way. Hers is in a good way. Mine's not a good way.
I don't think inspecting trash cans is a nice dream.
But it's really, there's a lot of moving parts with this. Dealing with all the engineers.
Sounds fairly simple.
It is. When I play it through.
You had the Joshua trees in there on top of it all, and hey.
It works. I know I'm pressured. Lori kind of comes into my office and says, we're going to get this done, right? Yes, we're going to get it done.
Yes.
So.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Oh, thank you.
Perfect explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so then we will move on to number 7, committee reports. Engineering.
We had a meeting last week and went over the usual components of the water delivery system and spent most of the time on working on the budget for next year, the different components of the budget.
Okay.
And that was most of the meeting. So we're just preparing that for next year's budget.
All right. And finance?
We did not.
We didn't meet again. Legislative.
We met last week, and I'll let Ms. Debbie go over what we have going on with the elected officials that have been elected.
Yeah, so the election won't be certified till December 8th. Although there's Steve Kennedy can get into the CSD code issue. But we are looking at moving forward with December 7th, agendizing to swear in our new directors. It looks like we're going to have 2 new directors. But again, nothing's been certified. And there's still about 87,000 outstanding ballots. And then with redistricting, for our assembly district, we moved out of, Smitty and Lackey representing us to Pasadena, and so Chris Holden was elected, so he'll be our assemblyman. Our state senator is the same. That wasn't changed. There was no election for that, so it's still Rosalie C. Ochoa Bogue. And then Gio Bernolti, they called it, he was reelected as our congressman. That's kind of it for our portion of the world. Our supervisor didn't change, nothing else.
Okay,
And that's about it. That's what we primarily went over.
thank you. All right, Park and Rec, we didn't meet again since we updated last time, right? Yeah, which was already in there. And Waste and Recycling.
We met last week as well and went over quite a bit of what we covered in the presentation.
Yeah.
And we canceled next month's meeting, and next one will be in January.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so number 8, Staff and General Managers Report. Ms. Lawrence, anything to add? All right, any questions on that? All right, so we will do number 9, Directors Reports, starting with Kathy.
I have nothing new to report. Thank you.
Mark?
Nothing, thank you.
Deborah?
Well, it looks like I'll probably be removed from the board, and I want to thank everybody. It's been an adventure, and I look forward to what's next.
Thank you very much.
For the last 4 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
You'll still be around.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, definitely.
I was here for many years before at the meetings, and I'll be for many more.
Great. All right, and President's Report, I have nothing to report, so we'll move on to 10, Correspondence. Ms. Sevi?
Yes, so as usual, we have our billing schedule in the packet. Well, that already happened, so I don't know why that's in here. Our fall painting class. Our Christmas tree lighting ceremony's coming up, December 2nd, 6 o'clock. Santa has been procured. He will be here, as well hot chocolate and candy canes. Our kids baking class for November just happened. That was really nice. They made apple turnovers, but you can still sign up for the December class. And they're going to be making sugar cookies and hot chocolate. And then we have our Christmas painting class. So some fun winter activities coming up.
Nice, thank you. All right, number 11, Review of Action Items. Were there any prior meeting action items?
We just had the one that was ongoing about the logo use policy, which we introduced tonight. So that one is completed.
Okay, and current meeting action items?
There are none.
All right, then we need to set agenda for the next meeting, which will be December 7th.
Yes, and Mr. Kennedy will be joining us in person. We are hoping that the election will be certified by then, so we can swear in our new board. And that's about it.
All right, anything, anybody have anything else they wanted to add to the agenda? No, all right. So with no further business, we will adjourn at 7:17 p.m.